Hello, thank you and welcome to our webinar, Keys to Selling Cloud to SMBs. On our webinar today, Anurag Agrawal, CEO and Principal Analyst at TechIsle, along with David Grafia, VP of Sales at dinCloud, will explain why SMBs need cloud, the various challenges involved, and how to find success using cloud channels. Please note that all the phone lines are currently muted, but if you have any question at any point of time during the presentation, feel free to write them down in the chat box. We will be more than happy to answer them during our Q&A session at the end of the webinar. With that, we will start our presentation. Anurag, please take it away.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you all for attending today's webinar on keys to selling cloud to SMBs. The data and insights that will be presented in today's webinar is based on extensive, detailed surveys that TechIsle has been conducting with channel partners like yourself for the last several years. TechIsle is a global SMB IT market research and industry analyst organization. It was founded on the premise that go-to-market strategies require insightful research, flexible data, and deeper analysis, and therefore TechIsle's insights are really built on a strong data-driven foundation. We talk to maybe 5,000 to 10,000 channel partners each year across different geographies, as well as the end customers, about 30,000 to 40,000 end customers, that is the SMBs, each year to really understand what the pain points, the issues, and the technology adoption trends are. So in today's agenda, I will try to explain about 6 different but interrelated markers that will help you become successful in the SMB cloud market. But I must say that, you know, just by adopting one of them will not really make you successful. This is a larger scope and objective that all the channel partners should really focus their attention on. So let's move to the next slide. We all know that SMBs need cloud. You know, in the US, almost all SMBs have cloud as a top IT priority. Why? Because it solves their real world issues and provides relief for business pressures. And SMB executives are sometimes seen as small fish in a pond that is also home to much larger creatures. They know, or at least have a sense, that they are subject to tides and actions that are understood only when they are felt. For example, when a business lags, when their orders grow sparse, when supplier costs increase, when the competitive environment changes. Cloud offers direct relief for several of these issues. In a very real sense, cloud delivers a degree of certainty and control over cost, performance, and time. Cloud infrastructure and applications can be deployed rapidly, shrinking the time between decision and benefit, thus providing business agility. So if SMBs really don't make intelligent use of cloud options, they become really too slow and too cost heavy to compete with larger and savvier competitors. And this is obviously good news for channel partners. Why? Because SMBs need more help in a cloud environment today more than in the past. What type of help, you may ask? We are finding when we talk to the SMBs and we study them and we survey them that they need help in many different areas with technology strategy and planning that is incorporating entirely new options, opportunity assessment associated with the application of new technology, integration across on-premise and remote resources, and contract management in a world where contracts have become much more complex. And typically the Amazon approach to these issues, hey, we put up apps that will help you take the appropriate options during setup, is entirely insufficient for SMBs. They need hands-on support and advice from people who are familiar with their businesses. Remember, who are familiar with their businesses. This drives opportunity for both the traditional channel and the new breed of cloud brokers. And the cloud really aligns well with SMB business issues and IT challenges. Let's move to the next slide. But SMBs are also challenged by cloud. Obviously, you can read the data on the slide. This is from a very latest survey of SMBs, and the sample size for this in the US was about 1,200 or so. Security is the top rated cloud concern. Selecting the cloud services is another common issue, which plays right in the sweet spot of the channel partner. However, we caution against focusing solely on this issue, as we are finding that these types of infrastructure decisions are often made on a workload by workload basis, rather than as a strategic direction governing future cloud implementations. And then there is this concern over the fragmentation, which is very real today and will be exacerbated by further use of multiple types of cloud. And partners who can really address this issue can relieve a key concern for 1/3 of the SMB market. Integrity of data and processes is a related issue, and one which many SMBs lack the internal expertise to address. And partners who provide access to these services will find a sizable interested market. You know, it is not out of place to mention that most SMB executives really understand that technology and thereby cloud plays a central role in their entire management processes. This is more so within the upper small businesses, which is the 50 to 100 employee size category, as well as within the mid-market businesses. And many also understand the notion that payback on any asset increases, that is any IT asset increases as one approaches full utilization, and that economies of scale tend to benefit larger rather than their smaller organizations. And SMB has trouble consuming all of the capacity of new gear, meaning that they often pay for resources they aren't using. And those that get to full utilization have a different problem. Systems that lack adequate storage, memory, compute capacity, they frequently crash. And SMBs aren't really geared towards rapid deployment of new servers, storage, and networking equipment. Here again, cloud provides some options, right? An SMB using cloud works with a provider capable of sustaining high utilization levels, which reduces the per cycle cost of the underlying assets, and so on and so forth. So there is tremendous advantage in the SMBs deploying cloud, but they are faced with the challenges, and this is where the channel partners really step in. So let's move to the next slide. So if you start to see the trend over the last 3 years or so, we are finding that despite the challenges in selling cloud to SMBs, and despite the challenges of SMBs adopting cloud, channel partners are finding success in the SMB cloud market. In fact, between 2013 and 2016, 58% more number of channel partners have become successful in the cloud market. What do I mean by becoming more successful? They are profitable. They are seeing, they have great visibility. They are delivering to their customers' success, and they are not requiring to shift strategy on a quarter by quarter or even month by month basis. So, but there are some gut-wrenching trend shifts that are taking place. And what are those? Because we are immersed in a post-transactional market where discrete sales of individual products or integrated systems are being replaced by agreements to provide IT capacity and business functionality as a service. The market is shifting from one defined by discrete purchase and deploy deals aligned with refresh cycles to one where businesses take a hybrid IT approach that blends a limited number of on-premise assets with a growing range of on-demand services. And to stay viable, channel organizations and channel partners like yourself need to transform core functions throughout the business. For example, management has to manage and measure differently. Sales has to sell and compensate differently. Marketing has to change and expand its purview. Technical staff has to develop new and different skills, more on pre-sales support than on post-sales support. So let's move to the first marker. Let's move to the next slide. This is just to kind of show you that those that are successful selling cloud, there's a higher percentage of them are seeing revenue increases than those that are not that successful in the cloud. They are also seeing revenue increase, but not to that large extent. Or also the blue bar on the top right hand kind of shows you that, hey, 50% of them, those who are not successful, are seeing their revenue flat. And this is not the state you want to be in when there is tremendous growth that is happening, at least within the SMB marketplace. Let's move to the next slide. So let's start with the customer. The nature of the relationship that you have with the customer is a critical determinant of cloud success. So there are several questions that you need to ask yourself. Are you solving the customer problem, or are you delivering customer success? Solving a customer problem is a point solution. Delivering customer success is a long-term engagement. And we are seeing that more and more of the channel partners who are really successful are building a consultative relationship with their SMB customers. This is a particularly important point because channel partners struggle with how best to align sales with cloud opportunities. And those who are able to build longer-term, higher-value relationships become successful. Then are you focused on the value addition, or you are creating value for the customer? Are you still acting as a trusted advisor or acting as a meaningful customer partner? It's not a play on words. There is some truth behind it, and there is data behind it. You know, when you become a meaningful customer partner, that means you are vested in the success of that customer. And then that goes several steps beyond being just a trusted advisor. How are you trying to sell to the customer? Are you selling on price? Successful partners are not selling on price. They are emphasizing industry knowledge. But they do give equal importance to their technical expertise, but they do not lead with the technology expertise. Because once you lead with the technology expertise, you start to lose the SMBs. In fact, we are seeing that 3/4 of the unsuccessful partners emphasize their technical expertise during interaction with the SMBs. So every problem that they see from a customer, they translate into their technical solution. which becomes a inhibitor for the success. These are also the partners who are constantly emphasizing service quality without necessarily understanding what this means in a cloud context. And the successful partners, we are seeing that realizing the importance of pre-sales support, nearly 5 times as many are allocating staff and budget for pre-sales support rather than post-sales support. And this one strategy alone will continue to create distance between the two different types of channel partners and make you successful. In the box below, we have given some of our trend forecasts, which are available in a white paper, and I will tell you about that towards the end of this presentation. Let's move to the next slide. Now, there is a lot of talk about recurring versus non-recurring revenue, right? Everybody has been ingrained with the thought that recurring revenue is the way to go. There is truth behind it, but you cannot be laser focused on the recurring revenue. It is extremely important to drive revenue from multiple business lines. While more than 50% of revenue for successful SMB cloud channel partners from recurring sources, unsuccessful partners obtain over 70% of revenue from recurring sources. Recurring revenue is important because one can predict earnings, thereby reducing risk. However, selling licenses alone does not create a high value or high margin business. Cloud profitability requires that channel partners combined with sales of one-off consulting and products. On the other hand, channel partners that have focused primarily on services are clearly missing profitable opportunities for attaching products to the core cloud sale. And these firms lack the consultative relationships needed to drive cloud margins from billable professional services. And those that are reselling just the cloud services at cost plus will struggle to turn a profit. So the key marker here is in the next 3 to 4 years, you should have a balance of recurring and non-recurring revenue of about 50-50. And profit is also driven by a product. Let's move to the next slide. Now, it comes to talk about sales. Now, it is important to really understand this. Successful partners have moved from quota requirement for their sales force to really book of business. Now, most traditional channel organizations have been built on a conventional IT sales approach, in which sales reps are given quotas, and where some portion of the quota is retired with each new sale. Quota get overachievement bonuses, while those who fall short lose part of their variable compensation and may be in danger of being replaced. Now, this approach works well in an environment where the value of the contract is defined at signing and where the amount is collected in a limited period of time and against one or a limited number of discrete invoices. It does not work nearly as well when a client's payments are received over a multi-year period and where there is no master invoice defining total accounts receivable in a deal. In this situation, the channel organization can only pay the sales rep on a limited proportion, a month, a quarter, perhaps a year of anticipated total revenue. The contract will define payments stretching over a period of time, but account value may vary up or down over the contract period. And few channel businesses have the resources or inclination to prepay commissions based on future expectations. So what are some of the channel partners doing? To align with the basic revenue model, cloud businesses or the channel partners are viewing sales commissions as tied to a book of business, in which in much the same way that insurance reps are paid. Each contract results in a small monthly contribution to the reps' variable compensation, and the sum of these payments increases over time. This is a very difficult proposition to present to seasoned reps who have substantial quotas and variable compensation expectations. And that in turn is one of the reasons why established channel businesses can have some level of difficulty in migrating away from product sales to hybrid cloud sales. And we recommend, based on the studies that we have done, is one of three compensation models: as a percentage of gross profit, as a percentage of total value, or based on estimated consumption. Let's move to the next slide. Now, there are obviously, we are asked many different questions, whether best of breed is okay, whether it should be self-branded, or what really should be happening within the channel partner community. I mean, we all can agree on, right, that hybrid IT market is the way to go. I mean, that is where the market trend is, and that's the way the SMBs and the enterprises are also moving. So hybrid IT obviously gives you the opportunity to have on-premise solutions as well as off-premise solutions as well. So the questions that you need to ask yourself is, whose brand are you putting front and center? Is it your brand or your vendor partner's brand? Are you focusing on hammer or the nail for these solutions? Are you delivering a cloud that the customer needs now, or you are priming the customer to be ready for the future? What we are finding is that successful partners most often sell their own branded cloud solutions along with support provided by their own team. In fact, 78% of the channel partners offer own branded solutions as compared to 31% offered by the unsuccessful partners. And this is the successful reseller's desire to keep its own brand front and center in the cloud solution is rooted in several wise channel objectives. One is to create cloud equity within its own customer base. A second is to maintain the flexibility to change solution components as requirements or opportunities change. A third is to prevent margin pressure that comes from comparison shopping of the vendor's branded product. And by relying on the vendor's branded solution, the unsuccessful partner lacks these options. And then there is this topic about, best of breed or a single vendor solution. Partners who are successful typically start by understanding customer business requirements and tailoring solutions that address those requirements, layering in support and integration, and landing on a position that offers a platform for repeat business, healthy margins, and a position as a customer advocate. Partners that focus on transactional business built around pre-packaged offerings can be successful, but they are more focused on promoting features than on problem solving. And this leads to reduced profitability, usually because single vendor solutions are easy to comparison shop, which leads to discounting, churn in customer base, increased cost of sales, reduced year-on-year revenue from accounts, and potentially smaller deal sizes. Over 3/4 of successful partners are reselling best-of-breed cloud solutions and not locking themselves into single-vendor solutions. Let's move to the next slide. Now, you must invest in orchestration and data integration. Providing best-of-breed cloud computing solutions that serve the needs of SMB is only part of the technical foundation needed for success in the cloud channel business. Successful partners have also invested in the ability to provide integration and connecting cloud and on-premise application solutions. I mean, data integration is already there. I mean, if you're not offering data integration or application integration, you must start now. Then you have to start to look at orchestration, the cloud orchestration, because that is key, because that is really helping your end customer to be ready for the future instead of today and now. Because today and now, if you're just solving their problem, you are looking at the problem like a hammer instead of focusing on the nail. So you have to really look at it and say, okay, I am helping the customer to get ready for the future through orchestration as well, so that the customer will keep coming back to me again and again, which will give me both recurring, non-recurring, which will give me, services and product balance itself. And some channel partners have also invested in the ability to provide integration, collecting cloud and on-prem application solutions. They have built their own integration and migration tools that run on top of a stack of cloud offerings, while others utilize data integration tools and technologies available from third parties. And as the number of cloud solutions adopted by SMBs continue to increase, the need to connect data from different sources will become more acute, regardless of whether the data is sourced from cloud or on-prem systems. This logic can be applied to applications, it can be applied to infrastructure solutions, it can be applied to platform as a service. Let's move to the next slide. Certifications. We have a pretty strong view on this, and we are seeing that within the channel partner community as well. I mean, gone are the days where the channel partners used to wear, a Cisco certification badge with tremendous pride. But certifications, unless and until they are really meaningful, are becoming a drain or resources. Because the SMB customer, the end customer, doesn't really care about the certification anymore. They care about your understanding of their business, your quality of service, your being there for them when they need you. You should really start to focus on building more of an advisory service rather than chasing certifications. And twice as many successful partners as the unsuccessful partners are really focusing their attention on resources and training rather than really focusing their attention on certification. So you have to think through this and say, okay, where am I going to do the resource allocation? There should be on lead generation. It should be on marketing. It should be on pre-sales, rather than on managing the vendor partnerships, administrative issues, post-sales support, certifications. So those are some of the really draining activities that really drain the resources, both human capital and financial. Not to say that the certifications need to be thrown out of the window completely, but you have to pick and choose, hey, do I really need this, or do I need enough training to help me solve my customers' issues? Let's move to the next slide. So towards the end, what I'm trying to say is that understand that cloud is really a shared risk delivery strategy, and you have to orient sales, delivery, and metrics accordingly. You have to start to think about how do you align sales force compensation with the revenue streams that they are bringing into the business. Recognize that coding and integration are key technical attributes. This goes back to the fact that I was talking about, that orchestration, data integration is a must-have. Build an expertise in business advisory services and reduce focus on investment in technical certification. Look for ways of building IP, whether it be process IP, software IP, and use that as the basis of margins. Resale margins on cloud services alone will not support a long-term channel sales model. See, over the years, overall, all channel partners, including you, may have aspired to achieving the trusted advisor relationships with your client. But if the market is moving from value addition by the channel to value creation for the SMB customer, isn't it essential to move beyond trusted partner status to becoming, in a meaningful sense, a partner of the customer, invested in the client's business success? In the post-transactional world, contracts will need to really specify the anticipated benefits resulting from technology implementations and supplier rewards, at least above some nominal run rate level, and will need to be tied to achievement of these objectives. For channel partners, this is yet another way that the emerging channel imperatives upset business as usual practices. And becoming a meaningful customer partner demands that the channel members really change their approach to structuring customer contracts, to measuring progress on agreements, and to billing for services, in a sense, moving from a tactical approach tied to solving a customer problem to a more strategic focus on delivering customer success. Let's move to the last slide. So here is for all the attendees which are here on this dinCloud webinar. There is a white paper. There are 12 different points that we have highlighted, and they are all deeply rooted into the data. So these are some of the imperatives that you must strive to achieve in order to be ready for success right now, as well as be ready for the next 5 to 10 years. There is a URL there. There is our contact details there. If you have any further questions, either you can route them through dinCloud, or you can reach out to me directly. That is all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anurag. That concludes our presentation for today on keys to selling cloud to SMBs, and we would like to open it up for question answers. Kindly note that the phone lines are still muted, but if you have any question, feel free to write them down in the chat box, and we will have them answered for you. Okay, so I see a couple questions here. Question 1, you discussed sales compensation models. Could you elaborate on that a little?
Sure. We are asked this question a lot. How do you really compensate the sales force? I mean, there are 3 ways that I think I had highlighted: as a percentage of gross profit, as a percentage of total value, and based on estimated consumption. Each has advantages and disadvantages. For example, in pay as a percentage of gross profit, the advantage is that it aligns with the underlying cloud business. But then it can be difficult to calculate gross profit for a service or customer. Or you may not want to expose the gross profit percentage to the sales reps. And pay reps as a percentage of total value, it could be either for a fixed period of time, for example, 1 year, or for the life of the contract. It is easier to calculate and explain. The typical approach of paying commissions on a trailing basis provides an incentive for the rep to stay active with the account, but then again, does not work well when contract values fluctuate because payments tend to be on a trailing basis. For example, paid on quarterly revenues at the end of each quarter. There can also be a long lag time between the act of the initial sale and the payment of the commission, which is viewed unfavorably by some reps, and channel partners paying some or all of the commissions on an accelerated basis need to have an effective clawback process to manage collections risk. Finally, the third one, which I think I talked about, was pay reps based on estimated consumption at the beginning of a period. The rep provides an estimate of customer use of a service and is paid what amounts to a draw based on that estimate. The channel partner trues up payments with actual consumption at the end of each period. It provides an opportunity for commission payment before the end of the measurement period, involves the rep in driving account usage on an ongoing basis, can be used in situations where actual consumption can vary across periods. But then commissions before all receivables are collected. And then there is a fourth one, which I really didn't talk about. It is just a variation, which is sell based on an assumed gross margin. This is really just a variation on the volume-based payment. It is sometimes used in channel arrangements where the reseller is used to commanding a certain gross profit on managed services and requires each new service to fit into the overall compensation structure.
Thank you, Anurag. Question number 2. When you mention orchestration, what type of orchestration do you mean?
Well, data and application integration is already non-optional. And talking about orchestration in cloud terms, orchestration has two distinct meanings. One of them is the ability to connect technical processes to achieve greater consistency and higher throughput. And then the other ability to connect different applications together to automate across tasks. Both are important to an agile cloud approach. So you have to look at both of them.
Okay. Question 3. Talking about cloud, how should I sell DaaS within the SMBs?
Well, I think maybe, I will answer it, then I think, David from a dinCloud point of view should add on this, mobility and anywhere, anytime, any device access is driving that. In the small business market or even the SMB business market, sometimes server virtualization presents a challenge. For these, cloud is often an attractive alternative to wholesale change on the internal infrastructure. And this is true at the client level as well. Relative to VDI, DaaS is stronger within small businesses than within the mid-market, but we are seeing an uptick of DaaS within the mid-market customers as well. 2 years ago, apps were paramount with providing access to applications from anywhere on any device, improving the availability of applications and delivering services on demand. The first, second, and fourth highest ranked responses to a question are to what are the reasons why you're using DaaS from the SMBs themselves. So we are seeing that today's firms are looking to DaaS as a means of increasing control over mobile assets. David, you might want to add on this.
Yeah, I would. Thank you, Anurag. That was it was a very informative presentation, and we certainly appreciate it. From my perspective, from our vantage point, there's a couple different routes that you can take to have a virtual desktop infrastructure and or a desktop as a service offering. And the three routes that we see primarily are building it from scratch, right? So the entire design, implementation, and management of that physical on-premise scenario in that VDI space. You can certainly leverage a platform as a service, right? There are several of our friendly competitors that are in the infrastructure as a service space that offer, the foundational, infrastructure to stand up an environment. And then there's what we're doing, which is really more of a turnkey approach where we offer the entire provisioning process and management and analytics of the environment in a real-time scenario. And what we're seeing is if you build it from scratch, I have to say there's a lot of research and development that goes into the offering. There's a lot of, it's very capital intensive and it's very costly to try to build this, reinvent the wheel for the very first time. When you leverage a platform as a service, there's a lot of gaps that need to be bridged, right? So you have both capital expenditures as well as operational expenses on that reoccurring scenario. So there's a lot of moving parts on that. And what we're seeing is, if you're trying to enter into the SMB space and compete with a DaaS offering, there's just a lot of unknowns, right? From the application layer, you've got different files that are out there that you're trying to bring into to the user community. You've got databases, email. There's different compliance. There's challenges. There's all of these different endpoint devices surrounding mobile devices, Windows clients, tablets, thin clients, right? There's all of the moving parts at the hypervisor level. Are you going to choose Microsoft? Are you going to choose VMware? Are you looking at some sort of Citrix deployment? Are you, so what is that costing? And then there's really the unknowns around the data center, right? All of the infrastructure, the storage, the servers, the networking, just a tremendous amount of moving parts with, an unknown costing at the end. And then, of course, you have to implement this. You design it, build it, maintain it, patch it, secure it, back everything up. So there's just a tremendous amount of complexity in trying to stand up a specific environment for an SMB clientele. And so what we're seeing is really the reasons that you would, lean towards a desktop as a service offering as opposed to a building an on-premise virtual desktop infrastructure is, number one, to eliminate the complexity, right, of standing that environment up and deploying it. Reducing the upfront investment so that these smaller clients, they don't have a tremendous amount of capital available to them to take a risk. And then, of course, you get to they can optimize the staffing and your staffing, leverage your expertise as a partner. And then, as everyone knows, it's a pay-as-you-go type scenario. So, we're seeing that really drive the SMB market. And I'll tell you, there is a paradigm shift occurring in the channel, and it's going from a pick, pack, and ship scenario to a consumption-based approach. And so if you think about how the value-added reseller community has made its money over the past decade or so, it's really surrounding a lot of the ancillary services to that infrastructure. The imaging, the configurationing, the asset tagging, the on-site installation, the data migration from the old system to the new one. The ability to wrap that asset with a maintenance and support contract so that the VAR or the MSP can own that life cycle services, right? But that's really just the tip of the iceberg, because you've got a lot of moving parts as it relates to the point solutions. So now you get the pleasure of buying a tremendous amount of server infrastructure to host the point solutions, those applications for the security, the antivirus, the malware, the encryption, the ability to patch and secure that environment, right? All of those things are coming into play now, and what we've tried to do here at dinCloud is really automate that entire process and bridge all of those gaps from tip to tip. And so what we're seeing, just to finalize my thought, we're seeing that the reason you would want to go to a desktop as a service offering and bring that into the SMB space was, number one, to extend the life of the existing hardware. So you can go and reduce the migration costs. You can, they can get a longer usage out of what they've already bought. It also extends the ability to provide remote services and support the branch offices, right? It's a tremendous use case for seasonal employees or temporary employees, where you may want to, contractors, consultants, where you may want to spin up users, extend that virtual workspace to that user for duration of the project, and then when the project's completed, you can, or that employee is no longer at the firm, you can deprovision those resources and stop the billing in real time. Obviously, one of the inherent benefits is you can now also have a bring your own device type strategy where you can enable these employees to simply get to a browser and log into their corporate infrastructure. And what happens is you have you can now manage a corporate image down to an employee-owned asset and have true separation between those two instances, right? And then finally, one of the biggest inherent benefits of going to a DaaS offering for the SMB space is, certainly with dinCloud, is because we have the ability to back up, secure, replicate, and maintain that environment with the MSP's help. They really have a business continuity disaster recovery plan that otherwise they wouldn't have. And so for all of those reasons, we're seeing a major uptick in the desktop as a service space. That was very informative, Anurag. Thank you very much for presenting. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, guys.
Thank you so much, Anurag and David. With that, we would like to thank you all for joining us today and listening in on the presentation. A recording of this webinar will be made available on dincloud.com/webinars/archives if you want to revisit the content anytime in future. Thank you so much and have a good rest of the day.